Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. I'm super excited about this topic and this call. And I know some of you may be thinking HRIS data. How can anyone be excited about HRIS data? But trust me, I think it's incredibly important. It is incredible. It's closely tied to being able to deliver a personalized experience for employees along their journey, helping elevate that employee experience, creating more engagement, and creating a high performance culture. So it's actually incredibly important for what almost every organization is doing today. So I'm also excited because we have an amazing panel on today's call of folks that are living and breathing this stuff every day and going to be able to share some of their insights. So we should have an amazing session today. So before we introduce the panel, I have a couple administrative announcements. This session will be recorded. It'll be made available after the call. So if you want to refer back to it or share it with others, you can. And we are going to be doing questions. We're going to be taking questions throughout the session. And we have some time scheduled at the end where we'll be able to answer those questions live. So, but you don't have to wait till the end of the session to ask your questions. Feel free to enter it in the ask a question square in your screen, and we'll bring all those questions together at the end and answer as many as we possibly can. All right, let's first introduce everyone we have on the call today. So we have an amazing group of panels. I'm going to have each one of them introduce themselves quickly here. So let's start with Paola. You're first on my screen.
Sure. My name is Paola Calvo, Florido, and I am with TD SYNNEX. I am their North America Communications Manager. I am based out of Clearwater, Florida. Just a little background on TD SYNNEX. We are a leading global distributor for IT products and services for the IT ecosystem. We are headquartered in the US, but we do operate in over 100 different countries worldwide. And to give you an idea of the size of our company, we are a little over 23,000 coworkers. Yeah.
Awesome. Chris, how about you next?
Yeah, I'm Chris Andrews. I work for Cooper Standard, which is a global automotive supply company. We provide the seals and the fluid transfer systems that make your cars go smoothly. And Cooper Standard is located in 20 countries. We have roughly 23,000 employees globally, and I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome, thank you. Briana, how about you next?
Sure. So I'm Briana Dementi-Harris, rhymes with Diana, Briana, if that's helpful. And I lead the internal communications function for Carmax. If you're not familiar with Carmax, we're the nation's largest retailer of used cars. We have about 250 locations across the U.S., about 30,000 associates. And my team is the one centralized communications team for Carmax. I've been in that role for about 8.5 years, and we adopted Firstup, which we call Carmax Connect, in January of 2022. I've had great experiences, so glad to be here today.
Awesome. And Jackie, how about you next?
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. I am Jackie Berg. I'm the head of research at Brilliant Inc. We are actually an internal communications agency supporting in-house teams, just like yours and all of you, with everything from overhauling company values to ghostwriting for executives to analyzing engagement surveys and even optimizing Firstup communications. I am personally extremely passionate about today's topic and people data in general. My background is in online advertising and data marketing, and I have helped big brands understand their people data, their customer data, and their employee data so that they can target, tailor, optimize messages to just be more effective. So super excited to be here. Hopefully have some good perspectives to share in addition to this brilliant panel, and certainly some hot takes. So get ready.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, everyone. And yeah, my name is Mike Vilimek. I work in the marketing team here at Firstup, coming to you from Vancouver, Canada, rainy Vancouver, Canada today. So, okay, so before we jump into the panel, I actually want to do a little bit of a just kind of a preamble here. Going back to this idea of like, who cares about HRIS data? Why is this important? I know Jackie's passionate about it. I am as well. And I just want to share a little bit about why I think this is such an important topic and why I think organizations can really benefit from understanding their people data and using it to create more of these personalized experiences. So the first thing I'm going to show is actually, it has nothing to do with employees. It's actually about consumers. And McKinsey recently found that 76% of consumers say that they're more likely to purchase from brands that personalize. And again, this isn't surprising, right? I mean, if you have a more of a personalized experience, more personalized outreach, stuff that's more relevant to you, where you are, what you're doing, you're going to be more likely to purchase, right? And we experience that in our consumer lives on a regular basis, right? The most successful consumer brands are the ones that are activating customer data to deliver really timely and personalized messages at key moments. We probably all have examples of where we've experienced this in life. You can picture the young couple that just purchased their first home, and all of a sudden they start receiving promotions for home furnishings and moving services and home insurance policies. And really what this does is proven to show that it elevates customer engagement, customer interaction, and just overall brand loyalty. So the most successful companies are utilizing this data. Now, those same people that experience this in their consumer lives then go into the workplace, and it's a little different. We see that employees are still typically struggling because of a lack of relevant, personalized communication throughout kind of various key moments in their journey. Onboarding is a great example, right? We know that's a critical moment as someone joins an organization. It's kind of the first impression, yet only 12% of employees agree that their organization did a great job of onboarding. Open enrollment, so U.S. benefits, right? I mean, right now, benefits make up almost about on average, a third of a person's total comp. But you can see here that 50% of employees don't even really understand their benefits, let alone use them, right? So huge missed opportunity in terms of how are we sharing this information with employees. And this gets even harder when you have a large frontline population of people like me that aren't me, that don't sit in front of a laptop all day. It's even harder to reach them. So think the person on a front line, driving a truck, working in a factory floor. So it gets incredibly hard. Now, one of the questions that maybe you may be thinking about is, in the consumer world, of course it makes sense. You want to personalize because you want to drive sales. So why does this matter in the employee world? Why do organizations need to be looking at how do they deliver personalized communication at key moments? Well, it turns out it matters a lot. How organizations communicate with their people directly impacts employee engagement. Forrester recently did a study. It was called the Employee Experience Index, I think, and they found that employees who do not get the information they need are 3 times more likely to be disengaged. And right now, I probably don't need to beat this drum too loud, but like employee engagement really is like the holy grail of business performance. Literally every stat you can think of that a business cares about gets better when you have highly engaged employees. Less turnover, greater profitability, reduced absenteeism, the list goes on. And it even breaks down into different verticals. If you're in the healthcare space, you have higher patient satisfaction, less patient errors. If you're in manufacturing, you get higher productivity, less safety incidents. It's across the board. So driving that higher level of engagement really does lead to stronger business performance. Now, just to kind of tie back how all of this looks in terms of people data, if you want to activate employee data to deliver these personalized experiences, you kind of almost look at a map of the entire employee journey, and you kind of look at the different moments that you come across. And some of them are going to be what we call kind of generic or one-to-all. Some of them are going to be more targeted, where it only affects a few people. And some of them are going to be very personalized, where it could just be literally one person going through this moment at a particular time. And I just want to frame up what that looks like from a people data perspective. So in these sort of generic one-to-all messages, these are important, right? So things like, a message from the CEO, or like a complete organization-wide reorganization. So these things are important, but they're one-to-all. So everyone gets the same message. So in terms of people data, you only really need to know like who's working here. That's kind of like just a way to contact them, right? But generally, when everyone gets the same message, the employee experience is pretty low because it doesn't feel very personalized to me. It's just kind of like everyone gets the same thing. And the level of automation, so that you're able to take advantage of to be able to use technology, is pretty low because it's everyone, you create the message and you push send and everybody gets the same message. If you go one level deeper and you go sort of targeted one-to-many, this is where not everyone gets the message or gets the same message, but it's a little bit more targeted to a group of people or subset. So think of open enrollment for benefits, right? If you're in US, that's something you need to get. I'm actually based in Canada. I wouldn't get that. So it's a smaller population, right? So regional update or updates on regional holidays, those are a little bit more targeted. So again, the employee experience goes up because now it's more relevant to me. I'm able to use some technology to figure out based on attributes who should get what, so it's a little bit automated. But the people data required to do that goes up. You need to understand where people are located, what role, what function they're in. So you need to know a little bit more about each of these people. And then last, when you get to these really personalized moments, so think of someone is going on maternity leave or coming back from maternity leave, or someone just got promoted to being a new people manager. They may be the only person in the company that day getting promoted to being a people manager, or the only person coming back from maternity leave. But to deliver those types of personalized communications, very, very high level of employee experience. It feels personalized. It feels like the company knows exactly what's going on in my world and what I need to know. Automation is really high because you're able to use those attributes. You're able to pre-build some of those communications and have them triggered based off some of this people data. But you can see the level of people data you need to deliver this, very high, right? You need to know not just where they are, but you need to know what's happening in their lives. Did they just get promoted? Did they just coming back from maternity? High level of people data. So all of that is to say there's a strong connection between delivering a high level of employee experience and leveraging technology and the requirements on people data. So all that's to say, so let's move on. I'm going to actually open up a quick poll here. Yes, okay, so the question is your organization using HRIS data to target and personalize employee communications? So please go ahead for the audience to select what your choice is here. So option A is no, B is no, but we're planning to, C is yes, but we could do more, and D is yes, we are fully leveraging our HRIS data. I'll give a few more minutes for people to make their selections. I can see the numbers climbing here. So we'll get a little bit of a take from our audience in terms of where people are on this spectrum. I suspect we'll probably have people kind of spread out across it, but maybe bunched in the middle. That's my prediction. See. All right, last few seconds here. All right, let's close it here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we've got 19, almost 20% saying no, they're not using it at all. No, but we're planning to at about just under 15%. The majority of people saying yes, but we could do more. That's kind of where I expect to see a lot of people. And 7.3% saying we are fully leveraging HRIS. Love it. Okay, so I think we've got the right folks on the call today. So this is great. Okay, one last question as it relates to what we had just looked at. So what level of personalization are you currently achieving? So generic, kind of one to all. So everyone gets the same message. Targeted, so one to many. So different subsets of groups are able to actually, we're able to target kind of smaller pockets or subpopulations within the entire employee population. And C, personalized one-to-one. So we're able to deliver communications directly to someone, even if it's just that one single person that day. All right, I see the responses coming in. It's climbing, okay. Give a couple more seconds here to make sure everyone gets a chance to make their selection. And let's close it out now. All right, so similar thing here, right? So generic one to all, we got about 11.4. Targeted one to many, 80%, love it, that's awesome. So people are now, they're using the basic data, they're getting down to that sort of one to many cohort. And personalized one-to-one, already 8.6%. Love it. That's awesome. So we've got some pros on the call today. This is amazing. All right, let's jump into the panel. Let's hear from our experts now. So we have a number of questions that we've put together just here to have a discussion in terms of how some of these folks are handling HRIS data and how they're using that to deliver more personalized experience. So first question we have here is the how. How is your organization using people data to deliver more personalized, or more targeted and personalized communications? Who wants to jump in first?
I can jump in. The main way that we are using it, and I'm sure it sounds like there's a good chunk of the audience already doing this, but it is to target that one-to-many. We're using the data fields to automatically enroll employees into their targeted topic, as well as allowing us to have permissions to have unique contributors to those topics. And it also helps us with our distribution groups. So having this level of targeting has been huge for us, especially as we look for employees to enroll in different topics and allow them to have a unique experience on the platform.
can go next.
Yeah.
I would say that people data is really at the core of everything that we do at TD SYNNEX, not just within the communications we send out. Very similar to what was shared. We are also in that category of one-to-many. We use our targeted list for specific communications, but I would say overall to personalize the entire experience on the user end on the platform itself, right? So down to what topics they're auto-enrolled in, what topics they have visibility into to opt in to receive more information, and really down to even what options they're seeing in their top menu bar. So that will also vary depending on which country they're sitting, on which team they're part of. Some of them are also vary depending what topics they're following. So really that view of the platform varies from coworker to worker, really beyond the messages that we're sending out.
Awesome. Love
And
it.
Mike, I can jump in too. So for Carmax, so I would say we almost test the limits of hyper segmentation. So we do a lot of phased rollouts. So we'll have, a product that, we might need to this week send to these 5 roles in these 25 stores. And then next week it's, 50 more stores. So, we do a lot of phased rollouts. We do a lot of cascades down the management chain as well. So we really hyper target, and it's really important to our leaders that, one, we cut through the noise. There's a lot of noise out there that folks need to sift through. So we don't want them to get unnecessary information. So that's a really good reason to target, and also to control the message so that it gets to the right people at the right time. So we have about 45 workday fields that we use to create lists, and we literally have over 5,000 distribution lists that we've created, and those are both dynamic as well as static imported lists. So we really do hyper target, and we found that really creates more relevance and more engagement.
Yeah, Brian, I love that, because one of the things is, delivering personalized content is great because it obviously feels like it's more relevant to what I'm doing, but it also, there's that whole concept of reducing the noise, right? When everything is a priority, nothing is a priority, right? And the amount of digital, I think they digital burnout, I don't know, they have different terms for it now, but the amount of pings and messages that employees get. I read somewhere that over 50% of emails that employees get aren't actually relevant, right? So sifting through that noise, it kind of drowns everything else out. And when there is something important, it's really hard to get that signal through. So yeah, that's a huge value point there. Yeah.
I'd love to just add one additional thing there. So in addition to all of those great personalization and relevancy, target or strategies, one additional thing that we love to do with people data within a system is whether or not you're actually targeting communications, use it just to measure. So can we slice and dice this data based on these different employee segments and see who's engaging, see who's not engaging, and begin to even understand why, and or how to then refine our overall targeting strategy based on what folks are indicating that they are interested in.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, we're actually seeing quite a bit of that, even with a number of our Firstup customers, because when you start being able to look at which organizations or which regions are engaging more than others, and you can start looking at that over time, it actually can give you some pretty powerful early warning signs, maybe of we have a disengagement problem over here in this particular area, where compared to other, and then understanding why that is, right? Hey, we see that the sales team in EMEA their engagement has plummeted over time. It happened right around the time we reorganized sales territories. Maybe there's a problem there, right? That type of being able to see it by those different functions and by different groups and regions, super valuable in terms of the insights you can gather. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add, when it comes to insights though, that in addition to what you just talked about, the insights, because they're so segmented and we can target them to a specific facility, is actually quite a motivator for some of our leaders. So we can now share up analytics of how different things are working, and for us by manufacturing location by manufacturing location. And then we can share some of these analytics and we kind of put them into a leaderboard, and all of a sudden you have a leaderboard, and when you see one facility over another, you have some that have some friendly competition and they don't want to see themselves at the bottom of the leaderboard. So we have found that having that HR data allows us to look at some of this data in such a different way, and it's motivated our leaders in a very, very different way. And having that analytics is just key into the success of our program for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Anyone else on this topic? I think we've actually kind of started the second question, but anything else on this one? Okay, let's move forward here. So yeah, so what are the benefits you've seen from delivering more targeted and personalized communication? And we touched on this already, but any other thoughts on this topic?
I think for us, it was definitely reducing the noise. That was huge feedback that we got on a previous employee survey that we did. And actually the reason that led us to invest with Firstup on this platform. So it's really helped with that. And I would say it's a balance of reducing the noise, but also keeping some level of transparency in making that content available. And I think one great example that we have on this is how we handled our crisis communication with Hurricane Idalia last year. We actually enabled a shortcut button right at the top that appeared for everyone worldwide so that they could opt into that content, and then made everyone along the storm's path auto-enrolled into that. So then they were getting all of the information as people who are directly impacted, but then anyone else could also have visibility into that content. So for example, if people had teams that, they themselves lived outside of the US, but they were managing teams that were along the storm's path, they were still able to monitor that content. And it was a really nice balance of reducing the noise, but keeping this level of transparency. And I think that was a perfect example of how we achieved that. We had great feedback on that.
Yeah, this concept of reducing the noise actually it reminds me of a stat that I came across. So Okta is the identity management provider, and they do this study every year, or they do a survey, I guess, and they probably have all the data sitting there because of what they do. But they're able to look at, I think, organizations with 2,000 or more employees, on average, have rolled out 211 different apps to their employees. So talking about like the noise or the digital burnout, like 200 on average. So there's some that have more than that. Like you can imagine as an employee, like ping, ding, all this, like to be able to keep track of all the information being funneled towards you. Any way you can reduce that and say, well, that person doesn't need to see that. That helps with that problem. And like I've lived through this because I live in Canada. I'm Canadian, but I've worked for many U.S. companies. Two companies ago, I used to get all the benefits information for U.S. employees, and none of it made sense to me. Open enrollment, HBOP, I don't know, all these things. None of it totally. And so I kind of started ignoring all the messages from HR because half of them made no sense to me. 401ks, again, not a thing in Canada. I didn't know what any of it meant, right? But so reducing that noise and making it is a huge benefit to this, 100%.
Yeah, Mike, and I'll add to that. Like, I think one of the strategies we've used is, just the multi-channel approach of, like folks have their preferred channels, right? So some of the noise is like the overload of channels, but if you can get the information you need in your preferred channels. So some people prefer like the mobile app, some people prefer email. So, we kind of put information in different places to help with the preferences of the audiences. One of the really powerful things we've done is on our intranet, which is based in SharePoint, we have a content amplifier that we've pulled in all of your personalized content. So if you go to the intranet as part of your day, you will also see your Carmax Connect communications that are personalized for you. So everything that you're seeing is actually addressed to you, and folks realize that. Another strategy that has been popular is we have 2 weekly summary emails. We have a Monday weekly summary that is kind of like, here are all of your communications for the week. And it's kind of a list with thumbnails of, what's targeted to you for the week. And we say, dear Briana, here are your communications for the week. And then Friday is a wrap-up communication. And it actually just pulls in the content you have not read yet that has been targeted to you. So it suppresses things you have read and just pulls in what you haven't. So those are kind of some other personalization strategies beyond distribution lists that have been, have worked well for us.
Yeah, I love that. In fact,
go ahead, Chris.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I'm going to steal that trick. We haven't done that one yet, but I think it's a good one. We do the same thing. We have our portal homepage. We bring in the employee's personalized feed. which then, of course, anything that they're following, they see there. But in addition to that, we then also use those same micro apps in our digital signage. So it allows our locations then to have that personalized feed on their digital signage that incorporates both corporate and local content. All of those things continue to help drive that unique experience for the facility, for that one-to-many, and then for the employee in the one-to-one kind of aspect.
Yeah, I love Brian, I was going to go back to what you said about personalization. Yeah, it's not always just about the content, but it's the delivery channel itself. And it's interesting because over the last, I don't know, I want to say like maybe 5, maybe more years, the concept of multi-channel has became a thing, right? Where it's like, I can create once and I can publish everywhere. And that was kind of a cool idea because it was like, I don't have to go publish it in all these different places. But that kind of made it just noisier, right? Because you're pushing the same thing to as many places as you possibly can. So the thinking was sound. We want to meet people where they are, but at the same time, being able to have a platform that says, this person likes to consume information on their mobile device, sending it only there as opposed to everywhere at the same time is actually where we want. So that's what we call omni-channel, where it's the channels work together. It's not just about blasting out. So again, love the channel thing is a huge level of personalization too.
I would just also love to say, Briana, what you were saying about the fact that your targeting strategy includes also collapsing things that somebody has already read. That's behavioral targeting. That is absolutely brilliant. And depending on even your HRIS data, there's data like that can even live there as well. So sometimes there are integrations, with the L&D software, and you're able to even begin to target folks maybe a little bit differently who haven't participated in any trainings yet, or they're not, and so that's that exact mentality, and really, really, really brilliant. So just had to give you some props there. Thanks.
Yeah, I think another thing.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yep.
I was just saying, another thing we've done is kind of retargeting, for, you kind of set it and forget it. Like if there's an important message and, you're sending it via email, and we've kind of personalized each message and said like, okay, if somebody doesn't read it, then 3 days later they get this message, and we've kind of scripted what that looks like. Like, this is a reminder. So I think the retargeting can be really helpful in that way too.
Awesome, love it. All right, let's keep on moving here. Getting back to a little bit of the how. This likely doesn't happen in a vacuum or in a bubble. There's other folks we need to get involved to be able to leverage data. So what are some of the key cross-functional partnerships needed to make this work? Thoughts on who you partnered with and maybe a little bit how that worked?
I can jump in. So from day one at Cooper Standard, when we were thinking of deploying this app, we had really high collaboration with our HR group, our HRIS group, and our IT group, and the leadership in all of those groups all around. As a result of that, we just had ease of adding in our Workday data. So most of our Workday fields are in the platform, which gives us just all kinds of power when it comes to just customizing even an ad hoc distribution list that we have a need for a particular communication. So for me, those partnerships were absolutely key.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on technology. Absolutely. Like they're our most valuable partners. I think with just data management and cleanup, and as we were kind of getting started, we had some issues that we created ourselves by we imported lists and created duplicate users, and so we've had to really work with our technology department, for some of that data and distribution list management. The other thing that I'll say that wasn't necessarily intuitive when we started is our business partners themselves, like the folks that come to us and request communications. One of the things that we found is, we used to have just email, and folks could forward the email to whomever they thought needed to know this that it wasn't addressed to. They can't do that with Connect because of, with Firstup, because of information security. We've kind of locked down to the audience we've prescribed, and you can't forward it, which is great. But for our business partners, they've really had to think, okay, I need to really be specific about the audiences that I'm asking this to be delivered to, or else it's not going to get to the right people. So I think that was a little bit of a change of behavior too.
For us, I think it was definitely working with our workday team, our dream team, for to align on all of the attributes and make sure that it's accurate. We had a pretty big merger. Now we're going into 3 years, but I feel like it's an ongoing process to make sure that the data is cleaned up and accurate. So we work very, very closely with them. We also have a pretty large team of content publishers within the application. So and country leads within that team. So we have a very close relationship with them so that they can help us identify, how do we need to slice the different attributes to build out these different audiences in order to create this targeted communication. And then a lot of the times, different regions, at least within TD SYNNEX, they capture very different information and use different attributes to segment those different groups. So some of them it may be, management chains, some of them may be divisions, and we've had to work as a team between everyone to make sure that the correct attributes are included within the system, and we're building the correct audiences to create this targeted communication.
I'll just build off of that. That's exactly what I was going to mention as well. So of course, between internal communications, HR, who are normally the stewards of that data and are frequently making updates even to some of those attributes, adding attributes. So not only working with them at the onset, but on an ongoing basis as well to stay up to date. IT is super crucial because of course they're helping you integrate the data, and they're also helping other teams across the entire company integrate that data. So we also like to recommend making some of those other stakeholders. So asking IT, asking HR, hey, who else has asked for integrations here? And can we go, work with them and or ask them, how are you pulling in this data? What attributes are you using? And, how are you measuring? How are you reporting out on all this? What are the pain points that you've experienced with the HRIS data? And, are there insights and adoption metrics and anything else that we might be able to all share with one another? Which then, of course, the other super important cross-functional stakeholder is your data science or business analyst team. So if there's somebody who runs, Power BI or Tableau and can pull all these things in and have a big sweeping view of all of that, that's another, I think, holy grail of being able to tie the people data back together.
Yeah, the Power BI is something that we've actually just rolled out at our company. We have what we call our MOS boards. It's a manufacturing, digital boards of various manufacturing KPIs. And because we now have access to this data, we've been adding it to their EMOS boards now. And boy, does that get attention from our leaders when they see performance, a communications performance metric on their operating metric board. And so now those are available to all of our plant and HR managers and content publishers in Power BI, in addition to being available in Studio.
That's awesome. So powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on partnerships? Okay, we'll move to the next one. There should be good discussion here. What were the biggest challenges or barriers you faced or are currently still facing to kind of advance the personalization?
I can start. For us, it was the data transfer. So it's getting it out of Workday and into Firstup. And I know that there's a direct connection that exists, but our IT protocols required that we had a step in between. And so it was just that coordination of getting that data in and then making sure that it stays updated every single day. It wasn't, once we got it working, it was great. And it wasn't a problem necessarily with the tool. It was just, getting one system to talk to the other to make sure that daisy chain worked right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for us, in addition to that, some behavior modification on the part of our 10,000 associates that did not have, that do not have email, that never before Carmax Connect had they had direct communication from the home office. And so that's one of the biggest value propositions, was being able to communicate with a third of our population that we couldn't communicate with before. But that means that they no longer can just rely on their manager to be the one to come and give them their communications. They actually have to modify their behavior to actually read the communications that are coming to them. And then the other thing that I'll say, just getting started, I think, like, none of this matters if you don't have people registered. So I think that, the first big push is just like getting people to register. And, that took a while just to do that. And you asked the question earlier, like, what other partners? I would say our regional leaders also have been, there to kind of push on the registration. Like, we've been, giving them lists of like unregistered users, and they've been like, being the champions driving registration. So we've been at like 90%, which is great. So it really all starts there with good registration.
For us, I think it was getting accurate data. And I think just by the nature on how quickly things are changing within our organization post-merger, if we're not in alignment with any attribute changes, it can really mess up our audiences. So we just have to work very closely with our HRIS team to know, if there's going to be structural changes within the organization. And we have, hundreds of audiences set up with management change, and we're not aware of that, overnight, it becomes a huge problem for us. So we just have to always work very closely with them and be aligned with any changes that are coming up, so we can adjust accordingly. On the other side of that, I think on the user end, one of the biggest challenges for us was getting people to get used to not all receiving email at the same time. I personally love the idea of having, some communications go out just to the web experience, or just with an assistant notification as opposed to an email notification, and really leveraging that optimization. But I feel like a lot of our coworkers were confused by that, and some of them would be like, "Oh, did you get the email?" And the other person would be like, "No, I didn't." And all of a sudden, they felt like they were missing some information. So there was a bit of a learning curve to get everyone adjusted to that. And I think that it's something that we're still learning. It's something that we're still learning, I would say, even now.
Yeah, I'd love to respond to that, because we are able to do some of the orchestration engine for like the cultural type of communications, like diversity and inclusion communications, where it's not operational. Like, a lot of our communications, they're so operational that it's very important that everybody gets them at the same time. So I think that's a really good point, is like, you have to choose your moments, when orchestration works and when it's not going to be the right solution.
For sure.
Yeah, I love that. So that on this orchestration, I think it's actually tagged as engagement boost, right? To be able to boost engagement, where you actually let the system decide kind of the time and the channel to best deliver to each person. It's interesting. So when the Firstup rolled that capability out, we talked to a number of our customers, and they actually said, like, "Hey, wait a second! Like, we're giving the platform control over when this gets sent out. That's kind of weird. Like, it kind of feels a little scary." And so we actually worked with a few of our customers, and we did a little bit of like a test where we did similar types of content emails, and we said, okay, you set it to how you would normally send it out. You choose when and where, and then we'll do the same communication, similar type of communication. We'll let you do engagement boost. And what we actually found was the level of engagement overall was on average 3 times higher when the system decided when to get to the right person. So like, if it would send out normally on Monday, but in the past someone had only engaged on Wednesdays, it would hold it till Wednesday and send it then. It was 2 days later, but the time by which the message was sent to when the person engaged and was like way shorter, because it was like that was the right time for that person. So I know it kind of feels, it's almost like autopilot in your car. You're kind of like, is this thing really going to drive on its own? Like, a little bit of hesitancy there, but it was kind of fun to do a little bit of test and see that it actually does, when you personalize not just the content, but the channel and time of delivery, it does have a huge impact on overall engagement. Yeah.
I'd love to jump in. So, so much of this Firstup is super, super sophisticated in terms of being able to deliver once you do have that strategy. But being an internal comms agency, I'd say actually one of the biggest problems that we help our clients really solve is the fact that they may not yet have a real strategy behind putting their people data to use. HR may have set up the HRIS for their purposes, and it's kind of custom built, purpose built. But now you have other teams who might be attempting to integrate that data into their systems, their tools, and might be really struggling. Either they're bringing in way more data than they're actually going to use, or in some, really of the worst cases, without having that strategy first, saying, I really wanted to be able to target this group this way or slice and dice my data. And it turns out that's not an attribute that exists, or the data isn't really set up that way or configured that way. So it might sound super silly, but just starting with an overall strategy, asking yourself, what do I want to communicate? Who do I want to be able to communicate with? How do I want to be able to measure this? And how do I want to be able to slice and dice that data once it's all in there? Then we like to go back to the HRIS, and we can help sort of match the overall strategy to the attributes and the data and the structure the way that it exists, or of course, make recommendations to fix it, tweak it, clean it up. And then one other, I think, really big barrier, Chris, this is going back to what you were saying about the Power BI and the dashboard. I think it just one of the other really big challenges that we also, help solve and that we see is maturity, right? And so there's this really awesome study that is available, People Analytics Maturity Study. It talks about the fact that, look, a lot of folks are becoming a lot more data savvy. You have a ton of data. It's available to us, we might be using it, but then there's still a really big gap in interpreting that data and then being able to action off of it and understand how to make decisions with it, create hypotheses, ask questions, and get stakeholders to pay attention to it. So yeah, that's some of what we certainly see and help with.
Well, that is a perfect segue into our next question, which is around analytics and insights. So everything also, yeah. How does targeting personalization impact analytics and insights? So I know we kicked that off already, but any other thoughts on this topic?
For us, it's just huge. It's a huge enabler. As I mentioned earlier, providing data on communications didn't exist before. And so having that data is just so incredibly powerful, both to understand which facilities are getting communications, which facilities are communicating to begin with, and then encouraging those communicators to communicate, and then having proof that that's happening and helping encourage those that maybe need a little encouragement and engaging the right leaders. It's a huge enabler having that data available. And we do share it out in multiple ways. The BI reporting that we do is just, it's just broken open a whole new level of capability for us because we have leaders engaging in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking to like HR's kind of stakeholders in this, and a lot of it's HRIS data, but one of the things that we've seen, one of our customers, they did a little bit of a test where they looked at employees across, I think it was like a 90-day period, and looked at their engagement with communications coming from Firstup. Every topic, whatever you can do, just like overall level of engagement with communications. And then they compared that data with, and by the way, they have a fairly advanced people analytics team, so they're kind of at the cutting edge of this. But they then compared that data with, I think it was a twice a year engagement survey that they run, which are literally designed to measure engagement. And they specifically looked at people self-selecting as either engaged or disengaged. So like just saying, I am disengaged, like actually looking at that. And then they compared the data, and it was like, I don't want to say like 100%, but like it was almost an entire mapped correlation between people that are low engagement on the communications and are self-selecting saying, I'm disengaged. Now, that in itself, it was just really interesting because it just shows that the insights you can get from a platform that delivers communications on a regular basis, especially the more moments you have along that journey, it's a pretty good signal that they're where people are engaged and where people aren't. And it was a clear map to those people. So again, low engagement often refers to lower productivity and often high propensity to churn and turnover, right? So there's kind of like red flags being shown in the data if you can actually give those views. So yeah, pretty powerful stuff.
I think what's super important about all this though is that those insights aren't just going to jump off the page at you. You have to be super curious and you have to go look for that. And so Paul Rubenstein, who is a thought leader in the people data space and a great follow on LinkedIn, highly recommend. There's a quote by him that says, the purpose of analytics is to get people to ask better questions. And so all those things that you were just saying, Mike, are big questions for us to go ask, you know? And so if we have all that data available, it's just sort of understanding, all right, hey, you know, sales leaders, we're seeing super high engagement or super low engagement with folks that are in this region. What are you seeing over there? Or, you know, hey, HR, we're seeing a ton of interest in the, you know, this career spotlight that we just did for this person on this team, or a ton of clicks even on these internal job postings. What are the other hard to fill roles that you're working on, or how can we work together to create more engaging content and more, you know, interest around these different things? So it's about asking the questions and looking for those correlations. They're not just going to appear, or, you know, out of thin air.
We've actually been doing so much work around metrics at TD SYNNEX within the last couple of months. And I think a lot of it goes back to what you just said. There's a lot of data available, but if you don't know exactly like what you're tracking, it's nonsense, you know? So we've done a lot of work in identifying what metrics we're going to be tracking, what does success look like for us, what exactly like matters to us. Is it engagement? Is it open? Is it reach? And then we don't have an entire BI team on our side. So it's really, you know, our small team try to like figuring this out and creating dashboards. But we finally finalize what that dashboard looks like, and we are sharing it with our country leads and region leads, so then we can track, you know, the global engagement. But how does that change when we're looking at it from a more local lens? And another thing that we started doing in order to track this engagement is tracking the type of content that coworkers are engaging the most with, and having a nice content mix of everything, you know, whether it's business updates and DEI content and more of educational or career development type of content. And now we're starting to track what does the analytics look like for engagement on not just regions, but content on its own, in order to be able to deliver with the type of content that coworkers want to see. So it's been, I would say, more than half of my work lately, trying to figure out, you know, what is the data saying and how does that correlate with our work.
You know, one thing that
it takes a little while to go ahead.
No, okay. One thing that we just discovered with our team, for a while there, we were measuring adoption, we were measuring engagement, and then you'd have one facility has really high adoption but low engagement. It's like, well, that kind of makes sense. Or really low adoption but high engagement, because the ones that are adopted are engaging. And so we were struggling to figure out how in the world do we measure facility to facility, which ones have a good program. And, you know, and so with our group, we actually are calculating a single figure that multiplies percent adoption times percent viewers. And you come up with a number, and then now you can rank all the facilities one to another, because we have that additional analytics available and the location specific data of the users to allow us to actually pinpoint which facilities are doing well overall. And then that allows us to highlight those successes and share some of their best practices.
Love that. Okay, last question of the day for the panel is a simple one. What's next? What do you have on your roadmap, on your plans moving forward?
We actually have a really ambitious project going on right now. We are moving our entire intranet into the Current, which is our, you know, Firstup platform, and we're going to be customizing that top menu to be tailored and personalized for that coworker, depending on what, you know, policies and content they need to see. We're going to start off by, you know, launching this within North America, and then hopefully as the months go by, launch it at a global level. But it is a massive and very exciting project, and I think it's making those relationships that we just mentioned so much closer. We're working so close with our IT team and just going through so much data and information. But that's going to be our next step in personalizing our experience.
Love it.
That's great. I'll share kind of a few things that are next for us. So one is kind of really looking at channel optimization and our next strategy. I mean, we kind of iterate on that each year, but we're kind of in the midst of like looking at associate voice survey data, taking leader feedback, taking the data. I think you have to live in the platform for a little while to really understand like and benchmark your data. So now that we've had a couple of years, we feel like, you know, we better know what good looks like, and we can use that for our channel strategy optimization. And so we're going to be, you know, kind of putting that on paper and seeing like what we want to do next with respect to, you know, the omni-channel approach. Another thing to mention is we're piloting 2 AI programs right now. So we have Grammarly and Copilot that we're looking at. So I think that, you know, that certainly kind of helps with you know, efficiency and kind of looking at the way we're communicating. And it's not totally related to Firstup, but I think, you know, that's just worth noting that I know that a lot of folks are just looking at AI right now and what it can do for them. Another thing that I'll mention is we haven't necessarily been hyper-focused on Gen Z and, you know, what we need to do differently, you know, to communicate with that population and kind of personalize things. We have a very large Gen Z population. And we also kind of looking at our data, we have a lot of folks with not a lot of tenure at Carmax. And so we haven't really been deliberate about thinking, you know, through like, how do we personalize for that audience and for less tenured associates? And so I think that's another thing, just kind of a case study for us to look at and, you know, again, better personalize our communications for certain populations.
Wow, some ambitious goals. I'm writing notes here. For us, it's to take the one-to-many to the next level, to that one-on-one communication, using Firstup's new tool where you have the ability to, you know, have that hyper-personalization and include an employee's name and catch them at different journeys of, you know, whatever they're experiencing through some customized campaigns, which we're super, super excited about. One of the examples that we saw through Firstup for some of the content ideas was just during that Employee Appreciation Day. They had said, hey, just send an employee appreciation note out. And so at the last minute we did. It was like, it was so simple. It was, you know, Katie, we appreciate you. And we sent that out, that single message, and it happened to catch a ton of attention from employees. And one of them was a new hire, and they're like, oh, wow, I'm so excited to be part of a company that cares about its employees. And I just thought how simple that one message was. It was delivered in their local language because it was not somebody in the US. And it was personalized to them. It took us all of 5 minutes to put together, but it made such an impact with employees. It just goes to show just how impactful this really can be. So super excited to combine the attribute capability that we have using the HRIS data, as well as Firstup's personalization abilities to get to that hyper-personalization field. So that's what's next for us.
All of that. I think, you know, again, what I really think is next is being able to use data to help you prioritize. I think where we're spending time, where we're making those extra efforts to do the personalization and versus where it might be appropriate or just fine to do, you know, one-to-many or those different levels of targeting and personalization. I think, of course, coming down the line, the ultimate holy grail will be connecting the dots across your different business units and really being able to tie back and find those correlations between something that seems as much of a vanity metric as an open or a click or a view or an impression, and truly being able to connect the dots between that and something like sales performance and retention, turnover, and be able to really drive that towards business results. So this is exciting. It all starts with people data.
It does.
Exactly. Well, hopefully we've proven the point on why people data is an exciting topic. So this is awesome. We're gonna quickly move to see if we capture some questions that we got from the audience in the 5 or 6 minutes we have left. Just before we do that, just want a quick shout out. So Josh Burson, he's one of probably the leading global HR industry analysts. Him and his team actually have created a new form of research, and it's specifically around communication. It's called the Intelligent Communication Platform, Essential Technology to Connect and Engage the Workforce. I'm super excited about it. I've seen a preview of this one. It's really, really cool. It talks a lot about personalization in it, and it actually features a few of our Firstup customers. And the customer I was telling you about that did the employee engagement comparison to Firstup engagement is actually featured in the report. So it's going to be launching very soon. We're going to do another webinar with Josh to launch that. So keep your eyes open for that. Some pretty cool content coming out on this topic. All right, Q&A. So we've had some questions come in, and I'm just going to quickly read some of them out here. I'm going to start with my favorite one here from Michelle that says, "I'm loving this webinar." So kudos to the panel. So clearly we've struck a chord with someone. Loving this webinar. Will you send the link recording after the meeting? Yes, we will. This is being recorded, and we will share out the recording once we get it all cut up and ready to go. So that is coming soon. Will this be available? Recording? Yes, some great ideas to review with our team. Yes, Tad, we will be sharing that out. Elizabeth had a question here. What suggestions do you have for dealing with messy and inconsistent HRIS data? I'm sure nobody's ever had to deal with that, but any tips on that?
So I think, again, like great partnership with your technology department is really key. But we really had to, kind of get in there and look at it. I mean, I think you can't just let it sit. You have to groom it. You have to maintain it. So we, recently put together kind of a governance document on like how often we're going to look at all of the data and the lists, and how we're going to do it. And we have, videos that show how to do certain things. And so we just wanted to put some discipline around the list maintenance. So one of our what's next is really to really execute on that governance because it's fairly new. So that's some of the things we're doing.
Love it. Okay. Couple of the questions here. We had a couple in kind of a similar format, which was kind of where to start. It says, can you share the most impactful journey or moment to personalize or automate? So I don't know if there was a particular, I think a lot of times we hear onboarding is one to start with, but I'm curious to know any other thoughts on kind of what moment or moments would be kind of the top priority to start?
That's probably a good one. It's the easiest probably out of the gate. When somebody starts, it's a good marker that you can do right out of the gate. And in fact, I believe Firstup has a campaign already kind of ready to go to help you at least with that welcome message. For sure, take advantage of that out of the gate. And then create some of those others to help with. So we're getting in the process of launching an onboarding piece where we'll catch employees at 30 days, at 60 days, 90 days, at their year anniversary, and have different tips for them along the way to get to know the business, to make sure they're using the tools, think about developing goals and connecting with their leader. So I think that's definitely one of the most important, and especially, so that of course works well for those who have email. The other piece for us is onboarding with our hourly workers to make sure they just get into the program to begin with. That's the best time to get somebody to adopt. If you miss them then you have to convince them, whether they're so much more willing to adopt right early on like that. So yeah, I agree that onboarding is probably one of the best times to tackle this and have good use of that personalization.
I think another great use of personalization is even some of those day-to-day and ongoing communications. So if you have a message that's going out from your finance leader, something like that, how might there be slightly different versions that you might want to create depending on if it is an acquired employee and there's maybe additional context that you just wanted to link to or share, or maybe one or two sentences even that makes that might not be appropriate for other audiences, and so on and so forth. So helping everybody just understand that on a day-to-day basis, there's ways to incorporate personalization message that much more meaningful, that much more relevant, and to incorporate a little bit.
Love that. Awesome. Well, I know we're actually 1 minute here, so I want to just save a little bit of time to say a huge thank you to our panelists today. We've got I think the audience was very entertained and learned a lot. So thank you to all, and good luck in your continued HRIS personalization data journeys of your own. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed the call today. Again, this will be sent out as a recording, and you can refer back to it as you need. So thank you very much, everyone, and everyone else have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.